It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Teresa Franquera, who is the founder and senior researcher for ID Plus DCIS Research Group Network. And she will be in conversation with Ghassan Salama, who is the guest curator for Dubai Design Week. And they will be talking to us about the open source approach to social innovation. So thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ghassan Salame. We'll be talking today about social innovation, but a little bit from another perspective, from what we just heard. We're going to be approaching it from the grassroots perspective, bottom up, a little bit how designers are not do not only need to follow a curriculum from education institutions, but how they can also be empowered to do their own research and identify the thematics and the solutions that they want to approach. I'm a designer. I set up my studio in Beirut in product and lighting design, but I've also been involved with movements that are related to urban movements that are independent, that we're trying to basically address issues and related to the city, to Beirut, especially with some of the lack of the governance that was happening there related to issues that people were suffering from on a daily basis. And this really fed into my design work and resulted in 2018 of me creating the Beirut Design Week under the theme Design and the City, where we encourage designers to use their own design methodologies and approaches to look around them in their urban fabric and figure out the problems, the issues that the city was facing and how they can be part of contributing in the solution for that. So this year I'm creating an exhibition with the Dubai Design Week called Madar, focused on regional design in general and showcasing what design in the region is from really different perspective. I will do a quick introduction about Teresa, and then she will go through a few slides to talk about the DCIS network, which is basically what we are going to talk about mostly today. Teresa is an associate professor at the University of Aveiro and a visiting professor at the Product Design Master at the Faculty of Fine Arts at the University of Porto. She was visiting a professor also at the Politecnico di Milano and at Tongji University in Shanghai in 2015 and 2016. At the KISD Germany in 2016 and at Kedge Business School in Paris. Quite a few European cities and non-European as well. Teresa is a senior researcher at the ID Plus research unit and was the founder and coordinator of the ID Plus DCIS lab from 2018 to 2018. We're going to be talking more about the DCIS network and what are the DCIS labs. And is member of the international committee, the DCIS network, which is the Design for Social Innovation and Sustainability. Her research interests focus on themes related to service design, social innovation, and alternative scenarios towards more sustainable economic and social models. Teresa also coordinated workshops, particularly in relation to scenario building and the identification of possible solutions to be used for specific projects in creative places: Italy, Portugal, Sweden, UK, Finland, Brazil, China, Turkey, Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, among others. Yeah, I will leave it to you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm not an English native speaker, so apologize for my bad vocabulary. I will do an overview of today's network. As Hassan introduced me, I'm also, besides a professor and a researcher, I'm also the director of a design factory, Aveiro. For those who don't know where is Aveiro, is in Portugal, small country. very close to Spain. And I founded the ID Plus DESIS lab in 2011, and I'm also the part of the International Coordination Committee of this network. So the DESIS network, it's composed by more or less 50 labs around the world, and it's a network based on design schools or design-oriented universities that use design thinking and design knowledge to scale up and contribute to social innovation and sustainability. And the DESIS labs are teams of students and teachers that are based in design schools, developing didactic or research activities in the field of social innovation and sustainability. And just to give you just a quick overview, each DESIS lab can create their own brand, their own name. They apply to this International Coordination Committee to be accepted if you are developing some interesting activities in this field. And then you create your own DESIS name and brand. So here, for instance, the DESIS lab in New York, in Parsons, or the DESIS lab in Elisava in Barcelona, or even in Melbourne or Politecnico di Milano, where it started with Ezio Manzini, I think more or less 10 years ago. He's the president of the DESIS network. We have a platform, a digital platform, where each of the DESIS lab can upload projects they have been developing. And so we have an exchange of knowledge between all the DESIS labs. So, for instance, here we have Botswana, and in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, USA. And the students and the teachers, they can research within this platform, and they can exchange some knowledge, cultural context related, because each DESIS lab has a different context. Also, each DESIS lab can organize activities on their own. We are a very lightweight organization and very flexible. They can organize independently activities and invite the other DESIS lab to participate in. Also, we have created the philosophical talks to create some knowledge criticism within Design for Social Innovation. Also, we are now designing a new manifesto for 2020 about the social innovations for the planet, like this climate emergency that we are living, and how we can reorient some of our activities with social innovation for the planet. And just to finish, for instance, in Aveiro, where I teach, I started more or less 8 years ago. When I returned, I've done my PhD in Milan, at Politecnico di Milano, precisely with Ezio Manzini. And when I returned to Aveiro, I decided to found this DESIS lab. And I was completely alone. So my colleagues, none of them understood what I was talking when I said I was doing design for social innovation. For them, it was graphic design, industrial design, product design, interaction design, but design for social innovation was something they couldn't understand. And I created a course in the master degree, Design for Social Innovation. And in fact, with the students at this course, and also some PhD students, I was 8 years ago. Now we are more than 10. So some colleagues have joined this DESIS lab that is now a formal research group. And also the PhD students that have concluded their PhD in social innovation and sustainability, they are also part of the DESIS group. So that's it. Then I will talk a little bit more during our conversation. So.
Thank you. Part of the reason why we invited Teresa is also because there is some sort of a convergence, I would say, but also divergence with the Global Grad Show. and the DCIS network. The Global Grad Show is about bringing together projects related to social innovation and social impact from around the globe, and the DCIS network and a lot of the universities that are exhibiting with the Global Grad Show already have DCIS labs in them, part of the DCIS network. So it's this convergence and overlapping is very interesting, but the structures of both institutions and curriculums are also quite different, because the DCIS lab is kind of an independent lab within the universities.
Yes.
Yes. Can you give us example a little bit about the DCIS lab that you founded in your university? Kind of like a little bit, how does it operate? How do students engage with it, and how do other professors engage with it?
So basically, you need like a space. Because when you are dealing with social innovation, it's very important the face-to-face interaction. So we have a space within our research unit. And what we do is that if you start some activities related with social innovation and design for social innovation, and you apply for the DESIS network, what you have to do is just to show 2 or 3 projects that you are developing, and then you can start in a very lightweight format, developing projects with your students and the local community. For instance, we have already even developed with our DESIS lab in Europe, or even overseas. So, for instance, we have developed a common project with Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Or, for instance, we have developed another project with students in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. And we can just do some Skype calls between the students, and they can develop together with their local communities, and then we can just put together the results and try to compare the difference, because we are culturally different. So the way we approach social innovation, it's not the same in India as it is, for instance, in Milan. So you just start your own projects with your students. For instance, I start in this course, Design for Social Innovation, and I launch challenge to the students, usually with a local organization or association. It could be a group of schools, it could be a group of, for instance, this year we have to work with the Elderly Center. So the students were, because one of the things I think we need to do is to take the students outside the walls of the classroom. It's really important to teach them how to connect with the people they are designing to. And for instance, we went to the Elderly Center, and most of the students were like, we don't want to be with elderly people. But at the end, they say it was really a challenging experience, and we love to work with them. So we co-design with them within the Elderly Center, and we pushed also people to come to our classroom, because sometimes people think that we are just a kind of nerd scientists inside the university, and we are common people. So we like to invite also people to come to the classroom and interact with students. So this is...
So I see that one of the most important approaches for the DCIS labs is the participatory type of approach to the work that's being done. So students are encouraged to work within their communities, or which feeds into more realistic projects.
Yes, and then, for instance, one of the things that design tends to use, it's methodologies from other fields. And we use a lot of methodologies from social sciences, for instance, ethnographic research. So we just push the students to go outside, to interview people, to interact with them, to observe them, because we are used to deal with not data, quantified data, but qualified data. So when they observe, they can interpret reality and then make some proposals, but it's important for them to talk with people and to have some empathy for the users they are designing. If they don't know the users and they don't interact with them, they cannot understand that reality, and so you are designing for something that it's not realistic.
Yeah.
So we just do the work with the local communities with participatory and collaborative methods so they can design together. Not easy because sometimes you have some conflicts. But it's interesting because students need to understand if they want to design for communities, they have to be within those communities and be able to listen. They have to listen a lot and to be much more tolerant than they usually are if they are not dealing with those communities.
So we've been hearing and we're gonna hear the word innovation a lot.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship, it's a terminology that's being used quite often recently. We're encouraging students to graduate, start their own small businesses. This is the new trend. And then when we talk about innovation, there's this like really futuristic and idea about what innovation is. It's definitely the first thing that comes to mind, tech-related apps, tech,
Yeah.
So how do you define innovation and what is social innovation in that sense?
I use the most simple definition of innovation, that is new ideas that work. So creativity is the process of creating new ideas, and innovation, it's the way you implement them and put those ideas working. And in fact, you can have technological innovation, cultural innovation, and social innovation. And usually I think we relate a lot innovation to technological innovation, but it's not, because we can have other types of innovation. And students, of course, we were talking earlier, they think an app will solve all the world problems. So everything comes up and resumed to an app. So if they have to figure out how to solve the problem of water deprivation it's with an app. Everything is with an app. Of course, it's a mean too, and we can't ignore that technology will help us to tackle some of the problems. But you can do it low-tech. In fact, there are some interesting innovations that are not based on technology. And for instance, when we start some of these projects, and some of them, they are quite easy, they don't need even technology to work. Some of the students, they want, when they finish their graduation, they continue those projects. They have to be resilient and they have to be persistent, because one of the things for social innovation, the students, they do like to do this. They apply for the course. It's an optional course, but I usually have 15 students, but we have like 40, 50 students applying for the course. But then they say, how can I earn money doing this? Will anyone give me a job for doing this? Will I have, if I have my own company, will I earn money doing this? Because also some social innovation, and that's one of the things that I do. I try to make some bridges with other fields of knowledge. We work a lot with the management and economics department, for instance. It's to take this myth that social innovation is volunteering, is charity. It's not. You can earn money doing a social good. So once you start teaching the students that they can make up a business with social-oriented objectives, maybe they will start step by step creating their own business within this, but it's not easy because they don't see a straightforward way to earn money and have a job. And,
so this is something important that you mentioned, that how do you differentiate social innovation with community work? Because a lot of the approaches are similar. A lot of the tools to do this whole the participatory approach could also be mistaken of people spending their lives just doing volunteering, where they also have they need to survive, they need to make money, they need to start their own businesses. A lot of people have ambition. Some of them, their priority is to actually make money. So telling them that you can get into social entrepreneurship could be money making is important, but how do we also convince the legislators, the companies, the funding bodies, the venture capitalists that are playing a big role in injecting a lot of money and capital into entrepreneurship, that social entrepreneurship is equally as important as other types of entrepreneurship?
This leads us to this word that it's here behind, it's the impact. It's very difficult to measure the impact of social innovation. And if you cannot measure the impact in a short term, it's even worse to measure the impact economically. So when you don't have a business plan or numbers that you say to someone that can fund your idea, your business model, you can't say you will invest in this, but you will have a return. It's very hard. It's difficult to do this. But I think that there are some companies and there are some banks that are reoriented towards a more social, responsible strategy. And those banks, they are funding these new ideas that are based on social innovation. They are not charity, because it's completely different. You can have
so there are common interests, basically, between the private sector, the funding bodies, and so we need to find these common interest points so that you use it as an opportunity.
As we were talking also earlier, most of the social innovations, they are bottom-up initiatives, but they need the top-down support. If they don't have the top-down support, it's very hard to put them working. We develop a lot of projects within the municipality of Aveiro, and sometimes we need their support, and just for a place to have an event, just a place, abandoned building that probably they can lend us just to do some activities. And this kind of support, when it's missing, it's very hard, because then you need to fight more and more to get things done. So I think if you have the balance between private, public sector, the third sector, we can do it, and with universities, because I really think we need this knowledge exchange between universities and the rest.
There's something also, because we've been talking about social innovation, but also it's important to bring back the conversation a little bit about design as well. When we talk about design for social innovation, how do you define it? Because we know very well what graphic design is, what product design, what are the traditional disciplines of design are. And when we're starting to talk about design for social innovation, obviously we start really talking about more interdisciplinary approaches, and we get out of our own sectors and industries, and we start really working cross industries, cross sectors. Is this like core to engage other industries, other experts from the economical sector?
Even for our design community, sometimes it's hard to understand what is design for social innovation. Imagine outside, when you try to explain to a politician or to an organization or even a company that you can do a project for social innovation. We are using the tools that we use in product design or in graphic design, because in fact what we are using is the power of visual communication. We design services. We design some products that we need to give, let's say, to put the service working. So the students, they have all the skills, let's say the technical skills of design in the traditional way, but then they need, in fact, the other fields like the social sciences or management or economics. When they need, for instance, I know that in Denmark they are discussing the idea of teaching empathy in the primary school. And in fact, it's something that our students, they need to know. Maybe if you are a graphic designer, you don't need to have so much empathy, but when you are designing for social innovation, you need to have these skills, or role-playing, or some techniques of ethnographic research. You really need to have all of these skills, and then you can start building some visual portfolio that you can also go to a company or to an organization and say, that's what we do. And they understand what...
So what I understand is that, because we've been hearing the perspective from an educational institution point of view, and there seems to be like a lot of planning and strategizing and how we're going to design the curriculums for the students. But I also feel that a lot of times the students have also their own interests, and maybe sometimes we need to ask them what they want to learn. So I think this idea, I think there's a lot of freedom today into not defining the design disciplines by practice, but rather encourage these collaborations between designers and other faculties and other industries.
But it's not easy. For instance,
how do you do it?
It's hard. Sometimes I think it's the teachers, they have the will to make the change, because, for instance, public institutions and public universities, at least in Portugal and I think in Europe in a global way, they are bureaucratic monsters. They are so hard. They are not flexible. They are not even trying to face the pace of change. Everything changes so quickly. And the curriculum, they are still the same. You can't change your curriculum so quickly according to the changes that we face every day in society. So I think it's the teachers' will and their resistance to make things change a little bit. Even when you put things a little bit more open to the students, you have to have the space to do that within this bureaucratic monster that you have. So, but I think students, if they don't know the importance, for instance, to have this kind of education on social innovation or community engagement, once they start working with people, they are very motivated, and they sometimes they say, thank you for putting me doing this, because if you didn't offer this to me, probably I will never work on this kind of field. So I think we should all, in all design schools, have like a course, it could be an optional course, extra curriculum activities that engage students with communities for social innovation, social entrepreneurship, where they can meet other students from other fields, where they can together make some projects. And
automatically, once you interact with your direct community, because also the idea of the DCIS labs is that each DCIS lab in each city has a completely different approach, is a completely different set of thematics or research subjects that they are approaching. There's complete freedom and independence with the different labs, and
they adapt to their local needs.
Context, So getting the students to interact with the local context will give them the freedom to come up with their own ideas. And do you think is the role of professors as well to be flexible in that sense, to accept this?
Yes, because I think we are also teaching a new generation, and if we have this new generation that, if they are not sensitive to these community problems where they lived in, then what we are teaching them. So I think it's really important. The other day I forced my students, we usually develop 3 competitions, design competitions, and they can choose which one they wanted. So we had one in furniture design, another one in sustainable and social innovation, and another one in graphic design. And no one of the students wanted to pick up the social innovation and sustainable design. And I said, how is this possible that for you it's more important to design a new table or a new chair instead of doing something for the next generation? And in fact, I managed to change, and now I have more students applying to that competition. But in fact, we need to push a little bit them to be more empathic, to be more sensitive, and to try to understand they can do a difference in their communities if they are working also with them. Besides the fact they can put their own design studio and designing just furniture or fashion design or whatever, they can have also this role, this important role. And I think universities and the DESIS labs, they are making the change within their own schools with this kind of projects and activities.
So, also we've been hearing a lot about sustainability and designing for sustainability. So. We currently have a crisis, obviously, on the global level. How do you think the idea of collaborating, the idea of sharing research in an open source format can help the different perspectives from different places solve these global issues?
I think it's the only way to solve these complex problems. One, it's creating multidisciplinary teams, because I don't think any of our knowledge alone can face these complex problems that we are dealing with. And then you need to exchange some knowledge, because otherwise it's impossible also to tackle this problem. One of the projects we have been developing, because we are a DESIS lab, it's a European Commission project with Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia. And the idea is to create like social innovation incubators within the university, where we can exchange the knowledge between universities and communities in these countries. And we organize a workshop with SIX, the Social Innovation Exchange, based in London, and ID Plus DESIS Lab. We organized this workshop based on design thinking methodology with the students in Cambodia. And they have to come up after brainstorming with problems they have in their surroundings around the university. And one of the groups came up with the food waste problem in Cambodia. And then they start the ideation process, and they want to recycle part of the food leftovers. And they went outside to talk with people. There are a lot of street food in Phnom Penh. And when they arrived, they say most of the people, they are selling food, they don't know what is recycling. So this is a completely different
set of problems.
And this exchange could give so much, because we are learning with each other. There are some things that we are just giving for granted, and it's not. So I think the importance of exchange knowledge, and we can learn, okay, if they do this way in that part of the globe that has different problems or even different climate problems, maybe I can do it in another way here, so we can learn from each other. And I think that's the most interesting part of the DESIS network, is in fact this exchange of knowledge with so different realities as you saw in Botswana or in New York.
So it's not only just exchanging knowledge within the labs, but also transferring the knowledge from universities to the communities around.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my last question. We have 2 minutes for a couple of questions. If anyone has a question, please do ask. Okay, no questions, Nadia. All right, yeah, please. It's coming.
Yeah.
Hello. You talked about how innovation is about implementing solutions and ways to face challenges. Which are the main challenges for implementing innovation from your perspective?
Sorry, we cannot hear the question very well.
I think it's what are the problems in innovating?
Yes, in implementing innovation. Yeah.
Implement.
Yeah, it depends on the context. Sometimes you need money. Sometimes you need just a support to promote something. If we have the right stakeholders and the right partners, it could be easier to implement these innovative solutions. And you need to have someone that has open mind to try. We were talking here before, they were talking about failure, and sometimes things, they just fail, but we need to try in order to learn and to see if it's possible or not. So once you have the right partners, it's easier to implement this, but I think we always need some support from top down and some money. I think it's always needed some funding to implement things. Otherwise, people will have a bigger effort doing that, and people sometimes they just give up because it's so hard work to do that. So finding the right partners, maybe some funding and some support.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm just wondering, within your network, are you looking at projects or social innovation projects with scalability, or are they sort of very localized solutions to particular problems?
The idea is to scale up some of the solutions because I think every context has its own characteristics and particularities, but if we can scale up some of the solutions, it's one of our main goals. It's also to try to see how together we can scale up and replicate some of the solutions. So this is one of the main goals also from the network. Yeah, but it's not always possible to scale up all the solutions, because it might work quite well here and quite badly in other places. So. But this is also part of the learning process.
Okay, so that was the last question. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to the next. Thanks.